Hello guys, welcome back, and today we're going to be talking about Hero of Remnant. And also I'm really sorry that I didn't make a video yesterday because it was a blackout at the time. So yeah, so let us begin. So, we currently see Izuku in a laboratory. As you go like, huh? Where the hell am I? Yeah, said Izuku in his mind as he would start looking around. Meanwhile, we currently see a few scientists basically, checking on the baby as they would notice it basically awake. As in, Izuku's basically basically like waving his hands a little bit. The doctors and also the scientists there would basically, just be confused, but also somewhat excited knowing that he's still alive because they hoped that he was going to be alive, or at least, you know, still be alive. So, after basically, getting, shocked by this revelation, they would start leaving to go and check on the baby once again. After, after that, we currently go back to Izuku's perspective as we currently see him basically being watched over by some of the scientists. As one of the scientists would say this, so he's alive, said one of them. As one of them would say this, oh, very much a miracle. I thought he was never going to be, you know, never going to wake up, he would say. As one of them would say this. So, what are we going to do with him? Said one of them. As one of them would say this. Do you remember what Ironwood said? If we ever find, if we ever, found out that he's still alive, or at least already awake, we should take him to him, he would say. As Izuku would just be confused, saying, Ironwood? He would say to himself. As after being, or after being told of this, they would start leaving to bring Izuku, the baby form of him, because he's still a baby at the time, to basically bring him to Ironwood. So, we currently see Ironwood being contacted by the head scientist, being told that apparently Izuku is, fully awake. He would say this to himself. So, he's finally awake then. Time for me to see my new son, I guess, he would say to himself. As after saying that to himself, he would start leaving. So, after a few minutes have gone by, or at least a few hours, because at the time he was like, basically in his office at the time, which is pretty far away from from the actual laboratory. When they finally arrived, or at least when Ironwood arrived, he would see the child basically playing around with the help of some scientists bringing him toys. But in Izuku's case, he's probably just, he's just playing them just because he wants to pretend to be a normal kid, at least somewhat normal. So, after, a bit of playing it, one of them, specifically one of the scientists, would say this. Hey, young boy, it's your... As he would just look at him, specifically Izuku, as he would be confused. As he would say this. Your new parent has arrived, he would say, said one of the doctors, as Izuku would be shocked, but also, just be confused a little bit. After he looks behind him, he would see... Anyway, continuing on, as we currently see Ironwood, as when Izuku saw him, he would say, dang, he's tall, he would say to himself. As, after saying that to himself, Ironwood would say this. What should I name you, he would say. As he would start looking at the boy, as he would start thinking of some names, as he would say this. The kid definitely looks like somebody from Mistral? What about, he would say to himself, as he would start remembering a bit of the language of Mistral, as he would say this. How about Izuku, he would say. As after saying that, he would say this. Izuku Ironwood, he would say. As after doing so, he would basically pick him up, as after that, he would be named as such. So, wait for a second. So, after being told of his name, he would say this, specifically Izuku to himself. How convenient, he would say. As after saying that to himself, he would look towards Ironwood, as Ironwood would say this. Now, it's time to bring you back home, he would say. As after saying that, one of the scientists would say this. Oh, and don't worry about him right now. He's already fully tested and he seems to be pretty much okay, he would say. As he would say this, specifically Ironwood. Good to know, he would say. As after that, he would carry the baby in his arms as he would start leaving to go back home. Or at least for now. He's gonna be bring him first to the to his office so he can finish up his work. So anyway, continuing on, as we currently see Izuku in the the office of Ironwood while he's still finishing up his paperwork. As while Izuku's seeing this, he would say, "Hmm. So he's apparently a general." As he would start looking at the some of the documents that he has in his on the table, specifically Ironwood's, as he would notice the language was a bit different, or at least somewhat different. As he would say this, "Hmm. I mean, it certainly is going to be annoying to say the least. Going to be annoying to say the least, but it can certainly help if I can, somewhat read this," he would say to himself. As after saying that to himself, he would start looking around the room, noticing some simple trophies, things of that sort. There's also, a large couch there, some potted plants, as he would notice, a few other pictures. Mostly pictures of Ironwood when he was younger, including him basically with somebody else, being that of a white-haired man with golden eyes, as he would say this to himself. Hmm, interesting, he would say. As after saying that, he would look towards Ironwood once again, as Ironwood is still focused on his, on his thing, aka, his work, aka the documents. So, after, a few hours of doing so, he would say this. "Alright, finally done," he would say. As after Ironwood finishes up his, his work, he would look towards the child, as he would say this. Hmm, yeah, I should probably get you something to eat, he would say. As after saying that, he would bring his, newly adopted child, aka Zugu, somewhere else to basically feed him. So, after, going to a grocery store, which, by the way, everybody was just, like, looking at Ironwood at the time when he's at the grocery store. Because, imagine, like, the freaking president basically going to, like, a regular old, like, like, thrift store or something. That's basically what it looks like. Except if the president still has his child and the child is basically on his back or something. As Ironwood is basically carrying his child, basically grabbing some baby food. Some people were just looking at him, taking pictures, and basically like sharing it on, basically, showing it off to people. Even, even some of the news outlets after, hearing about, well, Ironwood having a quote unquote child, well, they were instantly interested, mostly in the child himself. And also, if you're wondering, yes, Winter does know. Because after learning about the child, aka Izuku, being freed and also finally awake, she would decide to basically, act as basically basically like a babysitter. Well, if she doesn't really have any, business in the military right now. So yeah. So currently now Izuku's about, 8-ish. Not really 8-ish, but about, let me just so we currently see Izuku now about 5 years old, as he's now currently attending a prep huntsman academy, basically to start training on how to become a huntsman. And surprisingly, he's actually pretty good, mostly because of how his powers work. Because remember, not only he literally has all of the Ten Commandments abilities, but also their personal powers and abilities. Like for example, not only does not only does Izuku have the commandment of love, he also has the commandment of love's owner, aka Estarosa's ability to use what's that called again? Let me just check. Not only does he have the commandment of love, aka basically meaning anybody that hates him, basically means they're weak. They become instantly weak. Not only that, he also has the abilities of the wielder of the commandment of love. I meant commandment of love, or at least the actual wielder of it. Being that of Estarosa, he's able to use, oh, let's say, oh, I don't know, Hellblaze, for example, or for another example, his version of Full Counter, which allows him to basically any physical freaking move literally means it will be sent back at them, but stronger, basically doubling its attack. So let's just say if somebody decides to, oh, I don't know, slash him in the, try to slice him, well, let's just say it's not gonna be fun. So yeah, imagine something of that sort. Yeah, that's definitely not terrifying at all. And so he slowly became the strongest in his school, even though he doesn't have a quote unquote semblance. Yes, that when they first saw him trying to use his quote unquote semblance, being that of the Ten Commandments, they were confused. Uh, Pretty simply, they were confused because, semblances need something to power it, but for some reason, the aura that they're using, or at least what Izuku was using, well, it didn't really, lower his stats. Lower his, well, his aura. So, yeah, basically, he was basically an anomaly, and let's just say everybody was terrified, but also praising him. And let's just say the ones that were, angry and also sort of hated him, well, let's just say they didn't have a good time. When, for example, this one time, when he was like 5 and when he was starting out being in the school, and after learning that he's the son, or at least the adopted son, of Ironwood, one kid decided, in all of his wisdom, to try and fight him. And so the first fight between him and the student would begin, and the student would, after, one punch, well, it didn't really work. To Izuku, it felt like pebbles. Yes, it felt like pebbles. And not only that, this kid was being tutored by one of the more stronger, wait for a second, the more stronger instructors of the school because he was a rich brat. Because remember, he lives in Atlas, aka Izuku. So, when he tried to fight the guy, let's just say it didn't really went well. For him, at least. So, Izuku basically beat his ass. Because remember, he basically learned how to use his powers at a really, really, really young age. Like, literally like 3. So, yeah. So, it literally meant that nobody could stop him. And at the time, he didn't even use a weapon. Yes, he didn't even use a weapon, like at all. So, at the time, when he was fighting the guy, he was using a weapon. And the guy, using like a chainsaw based weapon, I don't know. Well, let's just say his ass was grass, and the grass is about to be cut open. Or at least cut. So, yeah, that is why he's considered as the strongest in this school. Or, you know, in the Huntsman Academy. Or at least pre Huntsman Academy. So, yeah, he was praised, but not only that, considered as one of the best of the best. And one girl would absolutely try and find a way to basically try and fight him. And this person being that of. So, this girl being that of the young Waishni, and oh boy, Wais was mad at Izuku. Mostly because, well, she believed herself to be quite strong. But after meeting Izuku and being quote unquote humbled, as in, getting her ass beaten to the ground, well, let's just say she became somewhat a bit nicer, but still sort of, you know, well, mad at Izuku. And these two have a one-sided rivalry. Yeah, let's just say it isn't a rivalry at all. It's more like, just Izuku beating her ass without knowing it. As in not knowing it, I mean, doesn't know why she wants to fight him most of the time. Thinking about it, Izuku just thinks she's just a white-haired Bakugo. That's a girl. So, after, a few years, Izuku became currently the most strongest in his school. And because of that, let's just say he got some, you know, pretty interesting attention to say the least. So yeah, I'm gonna be ending off this episode right off here. So yeah, bye bye!